do business.
All right, here we go again. I got a very interesting guy. To be honest, I stumbled onto Doug, and once I found out this was the Doug that I was seeing for many years, all over the place when it comes to horse racing, I was pleasantly surprised. Actually, very young guy, kind of shocked me actually. It's really young. I was like, holy, this is the Doug McPherson. So without any more delay, let's bring him onto the stage and hear a little bit about Doug McPherson. Doug, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, look, I want to say like, it's a pleasure to have you on, man, because I seen your name in the book, the Woodbine program, and see your name on TV and see it all over the place. I was expecting an older guy, you know. How'd you stumble into this game, man? You're so young.
Born into it, kind of the typical answer. My dad is a trainer. My mom was his assistant for years, and I just kind of got into it through that, and it's snowballed into all the stuff you see on TV.
Now, we were just talking a little while ago, and I'm wearing my Maple Leaf jersey, and you told me you're not a Maple Leaf fan, and we had a good laugh about that. So this is kind of funny for you, but is it exciting at least for the city?
Oh, it's definitely exciting for the city. I've been making fun of my friends for not getting this far for years. So to see them actually this happy that they made it into round two, I mean, it's a big deal for Toronto.
Hey, look, Doug, round two means a lot to many people all over the place. So round two is a big deal.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, my team hasn't won it yet, but they've actually made the cup final in the recent years. So maybe Toronto can get that far now.
There's always those fans that have that bragging rights over Toronto. He's like, oh, we didn't make it this year, but we've won it in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Toronto is like they're like the Edmonton Oilers of the East. They're both supposed to go so far every year, and it just never happens. So it's going to be interesting to see if those two teams can make it, all the way this year.
Well, I'm excited. The last time I watched the Leafs in the playoffs and was really excited was when we got killed by Boston. We were up, I think 3-1 or something, and they came back, and it came down to the very last game. And my God, it's like you ever punch a tire and you got deflated. That's how it felt, man.
Yeah, it's painful. It sucks when you're really on the verge of something like that, and it just goes downhill. It's so upsetting, and it's silly because it's just sports, right? But we get so into it.
Yeah, it's for sure, man. Anyways, let's get into my guy Doug McPherson. I hear a lot about you, so let's get this going. First and foremost, let's start from the beginning, man. Where were you born?
I was born in Barrie, Ontario, so north of Toronto. I've grown up in Tottenham, Ontario. Lived there most of my life, other than a little bit of time in Oshawa and a few winters in Florida. But I'm Ontario, born and raised.
Ontario, born and raised. Because I spoke to your dad when we met the other day, and he told me he was from where was he from? From Manitoba?
Yeah, he's from Winnipeg originally.
Do you guys still have roots down there?
My dad's family is out there. I've got some cousins out there, aunts and uncles, but I'm not super close with my Winnipeg family. They're not racetrack people. I talk to them, on holidays, but it's Winnipeg so far away, and we just don't go out there very often.
That's interesting because I always thought that Winnipeg down there would be a racetrack kind of land,
No, it's not like that. The track out there is small, and it's okay little track for for cheap horses, but it never became a racing city. Alberta is a little bit more horse country, but Winnipeg, for whatever reason, it's just not that huge out there.
So Barrie, Ontario. I've been to Barrie several times. In the community that you came up in, was it surrounded by lots of horse people, or just only you guys?
No, like where I'm from, it's a small town. It's like 9,000 people here. There's lots of farms around here, but it's not really racing country. Actually, Chiefswood, their training center, is like 10-15 minutes from where I live. There's a few thoroughbred farms in this area, but it's not really like horse country. it's more farmer country.
Yeah, I guess it gets like that sometimes. You go out there and so much open land, and but I think the horse people know where to find each other.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so let's get right into I mean, your dad and was your mom involved in the races too?
Yeah, yeah. My mother was my dad's assistant trainer for a long time. She worked. She was a groom from. She came to the track in like the '80s, and she groomed for a long time and worked for my dad as his assistant. And she actually grooms standardbreds now out a farm near Newmarket. She actually grooms a horse called Silver Label, who I think won an O'Brien Award for 3-year-old pacing filly last year. Really, really, really talented standardbred.
Oh wow! And are you big into the standardbreds as well?
No, I used to really like it and I still enjoy it, but it's so hard to do it with all the stuff that I have going on the thoroughbred side that I don't really have time to focus on the standardbreds.
You seem like a very kind of like relaxed kind of guy, but you seem like you still got your work cut out for you because there's so much things that probably going on with you. But you seem very chill. Like how are you able to be so chill in the environment of horse racing?
I am not chill. I am an anxiety machine. I'm very hard on myself when things don't go well. Um, but I just keep going because I like what I'm doing. And the nice thing is that my different jobs are all, they're very, even though they're all horse racing, they're all very different. So there's always variety in my life, which keeps it interesting.
But that's pretty cool because it seems to me you're kind of like a perfectionist. You need things to go the way you want it to go, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I just it's tough to say. I like being I'm competitive, I like winning. I like being the best. It's stupid, it's immature, but it is what it is. If we weren't competitive, what would the point of doing this be, right? The competition's the fun part. So, I like winning and I don't like losing.
Well, Doug, welcome to the club, man. It's a typical guy move. It's like I'm so hard on myself too. In those scenarios, so I completely understand what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, it's not just the racing part of it too, right? Like with the announcing in Fort Erie, if I make a call that I don't like, I'll be cursing to myself after I shut the microphone off. I haven't cursed on mic, and we're gonna keep it that way. But there's been times where I haven't liked a call and I've turned the mic off and just been like, not happy with that.
That's pretty honest, Doug, and pretty
Yeah.
fair because we're all human beings, right? So that's pretty honest, man.
Yeah, well, it's part of the game. You should always be striving to, do the best you can do, right? And part of wanting to do the best is knowing when you didn't do the best you can do and being able to admit that. You gotta see your flaws to fix them.
That's right. That's right. Now tell me something. What age did you start recognizing that you had this kind of love for the horses? Can
Um,
you remember? Can you go that far back?
as a kid, like as a young kid, I didn't really care that much about the horses. And then I started hot walking for my parents when I was 13, just because I wanted to make money. So it was an easy weekend job, right? So I started hot walking, and then so I was 13 and we had this filly called Give Your Head a Shake, who for whatever reason, I just fell in love with this horse. She was, just a lot of personality, sweet, sweet little horse. And I really got attached to that horse. And it just kind of all snowballed from there. Ironically, she's not like the horse that got me into the race. She never even won a race for us. She was really cheap. She ended up, breaking her maiden at Penn National after we had sold her. So I never even won a race with the horse that really made me love the game. But I really got into it from that horse, and it just got worse and worse from there.
Now, your first job, I guess you say, was you hot walking for your dad, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, before leading up to that, you probably had to seen your dad do his business and probably seen other people hot walking and stuff. What was that feeling like?
I mean, for me, like it was just to me, it seemed like a normal childhood, right? My parents went to work, they did the horses, they came home, and they were my parents. It was one of those things that never really had an impact on me. It was just, okay, this is what my family does. And then at one point it's like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do too. And it, like I said, it snowballed after I got interested in that one horse.
So, so I guess there wasn't no pressure from your dad for you to be involved in the business.
No, there was significant pressure to go to school and find something else to do other than the horse business. I mean, they didn't actively push me away from the track, but my parents were all, my parents wanted me to go to school and get an education and have a backup plan in case horse racing didn't work out. And I went to one semester of college and quit. And thankfully, so far, horse racing has worked out. But, I don't know what I'd be doing if it wasn't working out, because I'd be screwed.
Now you seem like a bright guy, though. I gotta say that. I hope I'm not wrong, but it seems to me, you seem like a very intelligent person. So I think you're making some good moves.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm good at what I do, but I'm also not ashamed to admit I've been in the right place at the right time, and a lot of just a lot of things have lined up in my favor. Like I was the chart caller. I got a job calling the charts for Equibase at Woodbine quite a few years ago, but all that just happened to be dumb luck. The guy who was the main chart caller, Paul Turney, he was an old friend of my dad's, and they didn't go actively trying to get me the job, right? But they just ran into each other one day, and Paul just offhandedly mentioned that he was stressed because he needed a new person. And my dad just happened, I was doing the same job at Ajax Downs, the quarter horse track. And my dad just said, well, my son's doing it at the quarter horses. Maybe he'd be interested. And it all worked out from there. And I did that job for 6 years. And like, that was just one of those things. If my dad didn't run into his friend on that day, probably wouldn't have got that job, wouldn't have been in the press box at Woodbine every race day, meeting people, probably wouldn't have ended up working in the race office. I probably would have just been still doing stuff at Ajax Downs. Not that, no, I loved Ajax Downs. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but that's a chance encounter that worked in my favor, that helped lead to a lot of good things after that.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
But that, I guess networking definitely matters. I mean, through your dad and through all the connections and seeing you around and see it. And I bet you they probably were listening to you. You probably spoke a bit, and they probably heard some of the things you were saying and see how active you were. Were you an active kid?
No. I was and still am a scrawny dork. I was not athletic. The only sport that I really cared about at that time was the horses. Other than that, other than the horses, I like video games and music. I was not an active kid. I was a not antisocial, but socially awkward nerd, and that's still kind of what I am at this point.
Hey, look, man. You know what? It's funny you say that, because in these times right now, in this world right now, that's the kind of the direction people are heading. Kind of
Yeah.
because people are more into their phones, is all like solo and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bit more space in the world for loners now, I guess.
That's right. A bit more introverts are ruling now. Back in the 90s, well, I shouldn't talk to you about the 90s, but I mean, back then, the geeks, as they say, and nerds, they're the ones who are ruling right now.
Yeah.
So the introverts are kind of, taking over a bit, I guess. Now, I gotta tell you this, man, because when we met, I was expecting a older person, and then I realized it was you, Doug. You're young. Do you get that a lot from a lot of different people, or is it just me?
It's probably just you, just because most people at the track have known me since I was a kid. So they've been watching it, watching my career progress from the time I was really young. So I don't think it catches many people off guard, just because I've been kind of visible for quite a few years now. But I could definitely see where somebody who's not familiar with the backstretch community would expect me to be older, not, I don't think if you didn't know, I think I could catch somebody off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's fair. I mean, because the backstretch definitely is like a family. The backstretch is a, people know each other. It's kind of like I hate to use this word, but it's kind of like cultish.
Yeah, there's an old expression that says, the fences around the backstretch aren't to keep the public in. They're not to keep the public out. They're to keep us in. And it's true. The backstretch is a world of its own. You have to be a different breed to really get along back there.
Now, as a young man, around the horses, around the trainers, you fell in love with the horses and the racing. Did you ever picture yourself being a trainer or a jockey or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I've always, I never really wanted to make a living as a trainer, but I've always wanted to train horses. And I'm starting to get the opportunities to do that, thanks, to being able to have my dad, help me out here. And being, so I usually have a horse, a horse of my own. So I'm getting to train, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm hoping to get my trainer's license sooner rather than later. Like I said, I don't really want to be a public trainer trying to, you know, cut out a living training other people's horses, but I do like, I do really enjoy training a horse of my own and helping my dad with his.
Is there some kind of the feeling of watching your child excel when you see your horses do well?
Absolutely. You put a lot of work into these horses, and it's very rewarding when it pays off, because it's early mornings, it's physical work, and it's a lot of stress. And like, I hate to be petty too, but when you're in a barn where you're watching all the people around you do well, and sometimes you're just on that cold streak, it's really disheartening. So when it does all come together and works out, and you get on a good run and win races, it really is worth all the aggravation and frustration coming up to it.
Well, I can only imagine, because I've never had horses and never trained horses, never worked with horses, but watch them from a distance, and I can only imagine how good the feeling is. I mean, to be honest, when my friends when they have a horse, now that I've met you, and when I see your horses run, I do get a bit of excitement wanting you guys to win. And there's quite a few of you who've my heart was racing quite a bit, just hoping that the horses get to the finishing line. But that's how it goes. It's quite a rush.
It is really it's a lot of emotions when when you're in a race with one of your horses, right? Like that filly that we ran this weekend who won, Oh Heavens. That was a horse who was coming off of a 2-year layoff when we first got her. And I kind of scoffed when my dad told me we were getting her. I said, well, this horse is probably a cripple. She's not, what are we even taking? Is this horse really going to be worth the aggravation? And as it turns out, she's been a dream. She's won 3 races, and she's been good to work with. And, the work has been really, really, really worthwhile with her. And it reminds me not to scoff at everything just on just on what you see on the surface.
Well, we spoke earlier, and I said congratulations to you with Oh Heavens. But on that day, I was like, it's gonna happen. It was raining. All the rain was coming out the sky. I was like, Oh Heavens, it's gonna have to win.
There you go. I never even thought of that. I should have told people to bet her just for that reason.
Sometimes it's all those little signs. You're the announcer, so you know how these things work. It's all the signs you get.
Yes. See, when I'm in announcer mode, I might have thought of that. When I'm in groom mode, I'm thinking, I just hope it doesn't rain when I have to walk over there. It's 2 very different mindsets.
I got you, man. I want to talk a little bit about the races, jockeys. Is there one jockey over the years in your short space of time? Because what are you being, like 27 or 28?
27, yeah.
27. So around that age, is there one jockey that you kind of admire from a distance? You like their style?
The The one rider who really sticks out in my mind, and I never called him my favorite rider when he was riding, but he really stuck out in my mind at Woodbine, is Eurico da Silva, because Eurico did not look pretty on a horse. He was not a finesseful, smooth looking rider, but he had good hands. One thing Eurico would always, or you would catch him doing a lot, which I really liked, is when he wanted to get his horse to start making a move, instead of instantly going, into push and trying to put him into a drive, he would drop the lines and they would just go loose for a second there, and the horse would start running, and then he would start pushing them into a drive when it got more serious. But he wouldn't instantly go into the drive. He had a bit more patience and a bit more tact going into that, and I really like that style. One rider that I always pay attention to and I like in the States is Paco Lopez. It's controversial because he is known for being a dirty rider, but you can always tell when who Paco is riding, because his lines will be loose and long. You can tell that he's riding a horse just by looking at the reins. And, he's an effective rider too, even though, again, he's another one who's not pretty. He does not look good finishing. He's not a strong finisher, but horses respond for him the way he just stays off their mouths. And I don't like over aggressive riders.
I've always thought that Paco was a very interesting rider. I thought that he rode well. I was usually pleasantly surprised when he's not in some of the bigger races, but I thought he gets the job done very well. So
he's not well liked by a lot of people, and I think that's part of the reason why he's not always in the big races. But one of the things I like about him too is he always tries to save ground. Like if he's starting out in the 10, 11, 12 hole, he will make the effort to get down to the rail. He's not just content to stay out in the middle of the racetrack, and that's something that I really look for in riders. Irad Ortiz, who's, well regarded as probably the best rider in America right now. He does that. He's always trying to get to the fence. And I think a lot of riders, need to start, especially on a synthetic and turf, they really need to put an emphasis on saving ground and getting behind horses. The ones that want to be in the middle of the track, they're not effective.
But I mean, as a guy who watches several races, do you ever have the bravery to actually tell the jockeys those things?
If they're riding one of our horses, yeah, I'll tell them what I think. But I mean, I'm not the kind of guy who's gonna, go tell a rider, oh, you screwed up on this guy's horse, blah, blah, blah. Just because A, it's none of my business. B, I'm a gambling person, not really a big gambler, but in my gambling person's mentality, I don't want them to know they made a mistake, because I might want to bet against them, hoping that they're going to make the same mistake next time. It's none of my business to tell other people what they, what to do and what they did wrong. Let them figure it out for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, a lot of times we have conversations about the races, and a lot of times the guys who work with the jockeys or work, alongside the jockeys, they say, hey, look, we're not going to tell a jockey anything because the jockey might just give us the backlash instead, so we keep it quiet.
Like I said, we'll give instructions for our horses, but I'm not the kind of person, I don't want to tell people, what they should be doing and blah, blah, blah. If you're riding for me, you're working for me, and I'm going to tell you what I would like. But I'm not going to, I don't berate people or tell them how they should be doing their jobs. It's not my problem what they do, really.
Absolutely. It's a really tough sport, actually, because you look at all the logistics, all the connections that's involved in racing. You're dealing with gambling, you're dealing with competition, you're dealing with owners, trainers. You're dealing with so much things going on, and the only thing that really matters, and I heard one jockey said this before, is getting to the finishing line first. That's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah, no, exactly. At the end of the day, the goal is to win. And even if that there's more, finesseful details underneath things, most people they just look at stats, They see the guy who's 20 or 25% and say, oh, he must be really good. They don't see the 10 horses that are sitting in the barn not running because this guy's hurt them, got the horses hurt, or he's just not running them because he knows they're a waste of time. So he's charging owners money. They're not hurting his stats because they're not running them. Your stats can't drop if they don't run, right? They only run the good ones, so people don't see the actual details, behind they don't see the context behind the stats. A lot of times they just see, 20% or 5%. They don't see the moving parts underneath those numbers,
Well, I mean, that's another interesting angle. And I'm really glad that we have you on here tonight, because to be honest, you've got a ton of information, and you're not afraid to speak about the racing. A lot of times people, don't want to speak about racing, and I always found that interesting because, if you're involved in something, I would figure you want to talk about it, and you want to be on it like most of the time. Well, at least that's how I am. I guess that's how competitive I am. I want to I want to stay on top of it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I like talking about racing.
Definitely.
I like the opportunity to speak about things. So whatever.
And I love talking about the races that went over the weekend, and it's just kind of like it's like a puzzle. So to me, it's very intriguing. I think it's something about racing that once you get into it, you just kind of like want to be into it a little bit more and more and more.
That's the thing about racing. If especially if you're kind of an obsessive person or someone who likes puzzles, racing is it's a problem that you can never really solve, but you always feel like you're getting closer to solving it. And I think that's kind of what makes it so addictive to certain people. I don't mean like gambling addictive, but I mean when it gets under your skin, is that you always feel like you're that next step closer to breaking through, understanding something you didn't understand before and using that to your benefit. And I like, that's what keeps me going. I always feel like I can learn something new the more I watch or the more I work. It doesn't get old to me.
Absolutely. Is there a special horse that stays in your heart from over the years? One that you always remember. It's always there in your memory.
There's been a few over the years with our barn. One horse that really sticks out for me is Crushin' Hard, who he's a horse that the reason he sticks out for me is my dad had an owner, John Addo, who you probably might have heard of, Addo Insurance Brokers. My dad trained for him for a long time at the peak of his career, and then John got out of the game, and then he got back into it. So he wanted to claim horses. So my dad asked me, help me just look for horses, and I found this horse called Crushin' Hard. And they listened to me, and they claimed the horse for $40,000, and they won right off the bat with the horse. And then the next year they won an allowance race with him. The horse made a lot of money. And one of the times he won, he was like 50-1. And everybody but me gambled because I was driving when the race was going, which made me mad because he paid, $100.
I remember that horse. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Queen's Plate Day. But that horse really sticks out to me because that was one that really made me feel good. I wasn't really grooming at the time, but they claimed him on my advice and it was successful. So it made me, it gave me some confidence that, okay, I can put my mind to this and I can, find horses that, you can do well. So that was big to me. Gigantic Breeze is another one, obviously, that really sticks out. Not that I really had anything to do with him, but because I was working in the race office when Gigantic Breeze was really good, but he won 2 stakes for my dad. And actually, one of the stakes he won, we sent him to Presque Isle. And, part of that was just because I said, why don't we go to Presque Isle and get away from Melmich and Are You Kidding Me, who were the 2 best horses in Canada at that point. So again, they listened to my advice and we went to Presque Isle and won a $200,000 race. So, and it's rare for a barn like us who, small numbers of horses to get a horse like Gigantic Breeze that can compete at the top level. So getting to be a small part of that meant a lot at the time. And I still go back and watch those replays of him winning at Presque Isle and winning the Autumn Stakes, because you might never get a horse like that again.
I guess those times were very special, having a horse that can win that stakes and do some good things for you and the family,
Yeah. That's like I said, it's so hard to get horses, top level stakes horses, right? Because the money is so concentrated at the top level of the game. The game is very top heavy, right? I'm not bringing up these names meaning, to talk negatively, because I don't begrudge these people's successes at all. But you look at Woodbine, you look Mark Casse, Josie Carroll, Kevin Attard. They have so many of the owners with all the money. If there's 100 stakes horses on the grounds, those three people probably have 95 of them. It's really difficult for the rest of us to, come by horses like that. And it's, so when you do find one of those few that trickle down to a barn like yours, it means a lot. And when it actually works out well, it reminds you that you can keep going, you can compete with anybody so long as you have the right, horse in your barn.
Now, it's a good thing for you mentioned Kevin and Josie Carroll and Mark and those guys. But for the rest of the back stretch, when there's a really nice stakes race and there's a couple smaller barns, I may say, who's involved in that race. I do see how the backstretch people kind of bind in and cheer for that horse, and is usually very interesting for me to watch.
Well, yeah, I mean, you root for the little guy, right? It's fun seeing, David versus Goliath, right? I'm not, like I said, I don't have any problems with, Casse or Josie Carroll or Kevin Attard, but it kind of gets boring seeing them win time. And it's the same like in football. The New England Patriots were so good for so many years. After a while, it's like, okay, can anybody else win? Please. I'm tired of seeing the New England Patriots. And it's not that you have a problem with the New England Patriots. It's just, you want some variety in there. So when in racing, it's the same. When somebody that you wouldn't expect it, comes up with a good horse, you want to see them do well with it and reap the rewards.
Everyone loves the underdog. That's what it usually is. Everyone just loves the underdog story. So
yeah, exactly.
Completely hear you on that. Now you were not probably alive for the last Canadian Triple Crown winner, were you?
Who even was the? See, this is one of those things. I can retain so much information.
Maybe you were. Yeah, I think you were.
Right? Who I don't even remember who it was. That's the thing. I can
remember
last week in vivid detail. I can't remember things like who won the last Triple Crown, or I couldn't name you half the American Triple Crown winners. I'm not good at the historical stuff.
I think it was Wando, wasn't it?
Yeah, Wando sounds about right. Yeah, I would have been very young when Wando was running, because I think that was like 2003.
Yeah, something like that.
Early 2000s. Yeah, Mike Keogh.
Yeah, that's right. Correct. Now, being in love with horses, racing, the racing, the connections, there's several things that people get involved in racing for. Usually is the love for the animals. Usually is the business, the sport, the money, family business. I guess for you, is a combination of many of those things.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got into it through my family. I started taking interest in it because I fell in love with one of the horses. I started learning more because I got interested in the gambling part of it, because I bet on one of our horses and made like $60. And as a 14 or 15-year-old kid, that was like, wow, $60. That was a big deal, right? So, so I got more into that. And then, everything just got out of control. It went from buying the form and, trying to bet on races on the weekend to, I'm going to go get a job out at Ajax Downs, and then driving out to Ajax a couple days a week. And then, I've done almost everything you can imagine on the racetrack except for ride. But, like I said, I've just done everything over the years that it's hard to believe all the stuff I've done in racing at this point.
Let's talk a little bit about Ajax. I want to hear a little. Do you have any interesting stories about Ajax? And can Ajax actually be? Can Ajax grow?
Ajax is in a tough spot, right? Because quarter horse racing doesn't really have much cultural foundation in Ontario. It's much more a Western, Western and Southwestern sport. I mean, to me, Ajax Downs is a great place to go out. Go out on the summer. It's a great little spot for the community, and you go out there on a Sunday in the summer, and there's a lot of people there. But it's tough to market gambling wise because it's they don't have a great horse population out there, and the racing quality is decent, but it's not great. I would sincerely hope to see things grow there again and have more horses out there. But quarter horse racing is just a tough sell in Ontario, just because people here aren't exposed to it enough that they think it's just kind of a crapshoot kind of game. They think they're betting on complete randomness, and it's really not like that at all. Quarter horse racing is very handicapable once you learn about it, but it's hard to get people past their first impressions.
So I guess culturally, it's probably you would have to be in a town or a city that the quarter horses are very popular and people are into it consistently.
A lot of quarter horse racing goes hand in hand with rodeo sports. I mean, that's what quarter horses were bred for originally. They were bred for speed to catch, help rein cattle and stuff like that. And so that's where quarter horse racing really developed in the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, California, all around there. And that's where you see the biggest quarter horse races are in the Southwestern United States. And, it's obviously expanded further than that. Indiana's developed a pretty good quarter horse racing scene, and Kentucky's starting to get back into it. And when they were racing at Hialeah Park in Florida, it was doing really well. But it just never really took foothold in Ontario the same way it has in other places. Alberta's quarter horse racing is actually pretty decent quality, but it just hasn't cemented itself in Ontario the same way you'd like to see it.
Yeah, I can see that, because even for me myself, quarter, like you said, I mean, quarter racing, you watch it, you blink 2 times and it's over, and you like all this handicapping for a few seconds.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough.
Ontario has such a bigger harness, like standardbred racing is so much bigger in Ontario, and that goes back to harness horses were useful to farmers in the early historically, and they had horses that they trained to, they had like buggy horses, and they just ended up racing them. And that's how standardbred racing grew. It's the same reason why harness racing didn't grow in the Southwestern United States, because those guys didn't need buggy horses for farms and stuff like that. They needed, fast horses like quarter horses to help do ranch activities. It's amazing how the culture, really affects how the sport develops in different areas.
Correct. Back in 2016, I had a little hobby that I started doing, which was handicapping horses on my little blog.
Yeah.
And I know that you do a bit of that as well. What was that like for you? Is that fun? Is it still fun? Or, I mean, for me, it started off as fun, and then it became like a lot of work. And I was like, holy, this is.
I haven't blogged in years. My blog, I think, is gone. Like, I think I've wiped it pretty much from the internet. The thing I liked about I liked the blogging because it was exposure for me as a young person trying to build a career. I could show, here's a place where I have my picks, or here, where I've written opinions, opinion pieces about the industry. So it gave me some sort of foundation to show off what I could do. But once I started getting paid to handicap, I didn't really want to do it on the internet just for laughs the same way.
No, it's not the same.
No.
I can definitely see that. The more races you handicap, the more you're like,
but it's the same now. Like, now that I'm so entrenched in Woodbine and Fort Erie, I don't watch racing in the States the same way I used to, just because I really want to be focused on what's going on in Ontario. It's more important for me to know what's going on in 5,000 claimers in Fort Erie than it is to know what's going on in grade 1 races in Saratoga. So I don't watch a lot of the American races anymore. And it's not because, of any like lack of passion for the sport. I still like watching those races, but it's just, for me, it's way more important to be really entrenched in Ontario.
No, I definitely hear you on that, because I like, even for example, there's many other tracks that I speak to people about, and To be honest, I can't tell them anything about it because they tell me the names of the horses and what's going on, and I can tune in for a really big race, but to watch it consistently, I don't have the time, first of all, and
Yeah.
that's mostly part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only other time I watch racing in the States regularly is when I go to Florida in the winters, and I'll watch Gulfstream while I'm down there. So in the winters, I kind of get to know the horses in Florida pretty well. But even then, once I'm back to Woodbine, all that kind of gets erased.
Now, besides Woodbine and Fort Erie, is there another track here in Canada that you have a special liking for?
Ajax Downs, just because they really gave me the foundation of my career, right? Like before I worked at Ajax, all I really did was hot walk, so they really helped me set things up. I was the handicapper there. I chart caller there. I was a clocker there. I got to take entries in the race office there, and all that stuff, led to my career at Woodbine. So I really owe a lot to Ajax Downs, and I'm always rooting for their support or their success, I should say. Um, Other than that, in Canada, I haven't got to go to a lot of the tracks in Western Canada. Like I haven't been to Assiniboia since I was young. Northlands Park is gone now. I haven't been to at either of the Century tracks. So it's in Western Canada, it's not really much. Really, Woodbine and Fort Erie and Ajax are where my heart is.
Now, after saying that, do you? I don't know if this is you allowed to say that because I guess you work for probably Woodbine and Fort Erie, but wouldn't it be nice to have another big track here in Canada that it can get very competitive, where it's like a rivalry kind of, East Coast, West Coast,
I don't know where you could have another, top level track in Canada. I mean, back in the day, Hastings in Vancouver used to handle, they used to wager similar to what Woodbine wagers, but it's not like that anymore. I don't know where you could put a track in Canada where you could attract top level horses other than Toronto, like to me, Woodbine being the A track and Fort Erie, being the secondary track is just how it should be in Ontario. And then Western Canada, unfortunately, is always going to be a little lower level than what Ontario has. And that's just the way it is because it's the horse population is shrinking across North America. So I don't know where you're going to get top level horses to show up, in smaller markets.
Well, I guess we'll have to find out if that ever changes. It haven't changed in several years, so
Yeah,
we'll have to see.
some enterprising person could show up in Western Canada and maybe find a way to do it, but that's certainly outside of my pay grade.
Do you think that the horse racing itself is kind of misunderstood by the outside world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody, people go on about how, it's abusive, and it's so not abuse, if you really understand the care that goes into race horses compared to like I briefly lived at a boarding farm just outside of Oshawa. It wasn't a racing farm, it was just like a boarding farm. And the care that the race horses are getting at Woodbine compared to the care that horses were getting, not that these horses were getting bad care, but the comparison of race horses to what your average horse is getting, it's it's night and day. Like a lot of amateur horse owners, like people just have pets. They don't have a lot of the knowledge that racehorse people have, because when you're in racehorses, you're going to see more things. You're going to have more experience dealing with problems. Whereas people who, just have horses to have them, they maybe have one pet that they pay board on and that's it. They don't experience as much of the difficult things, so they don't know how to solve problems when they come up. Whereas with racehorses, since you are going to see problems just due to the, the nature of the sport, you learn how to deal with these things and hopefully fix them. So, I think you can really develop good horse people at the racetrack. And it, from what I've seen, you might develop good riders off the track, but you don't develop as many good horse people.
Well, I'll tell you what. I know that the racing community will love that, and the racing community, they do put a lot of care into their animals and into the horses, and it's really spectacular just to watch how the grooms and the guys who look after the animals, how they pay so much attention and they treat them like part of the family, and they speak highly of them and so much care, so much attention. It's quite interesting. Once you get back there and you start to see what's happening, it really is an eye opener, man.
No, yeah. For the most, like, why would anybody do that? Why would anybody wake up and start work at like 3, 4, 5 a.m. every day? A lot of guys 7 days a week or 13 out of 14 days. Why would they do that if they didn't actually like their animals? It wouldn't make sense. Who wakes up? Who wants to wake up in the morning and say, I hate horses. Let's go groom them for, all morning and then have to stick around in the afternoon and bring them over to races. Who in their right mind?
You're absolutely, absolutely correct. It's quite a love. I see some of the older people, and they really love looking after the animals. So,
Yeah,
hats off to them.
it gets under your skin. It's really hard to quit. Once you really get into it.
I gotta ask you, man, and about you and your career path, and becoming the announcer for Fort Erie, the voice of Fort Erie. Do you, do you realize that you enunciate your words very clearly, and you have a distinct kind of voice? Has anyone ever told you that, and are you aware that you're doing that?
It's funny when I got when I started announcing races, it was a joke, like not a joke, but it was just something I wanted to do just to say I had done it. I wasn't trying to be an announcer, but the reviews were always good. Everybody, like Robert Geller, the announcer Woodbine, he's been a friend of mine for quite a few years now, and he is always supportive. He says you have a lot to, a very good foundation to build on. So that always, made me feel good about it, because like I'm not consciously enunciating words or anything. It's just the way I talk. And the one nice thing at Fort Erie was that the locals there were very welcoming of me and very positive. Everybody, for the most part, everybody had good things to say. I didn't get too much hate on the internet when I started. So I figured, you know what? If I'm not hearing any bad news, that's a good thing. That means I got to be doing something right. So, I'm grateful that it's gone well so far.
Well, I mean, you're doing a pretty good job so far. I mean, now you have the voice. I know exactly, because it's funny because when I watch a racetrack and I hear the voice, I know exactly. I don't even have to see the track. I just need to hear the voice. I know, okay, that's that track that's running.
Yeah.
And I got my daughter now, and she knows all the lingo and the voices now, because I'm listening and watching her to see how she's reacting, and
Yeah.
she's pretty intelligent about these things as well.
Like I'm sure you've experienced it, doing this, right? When you've like first started watching these shows back, or like when you first heard yourself recorded, does it ever like mess with you? Like how, like, do I really sound like that? You don't. So like when I first got when Fort Erie started last year and I would watch the replays going to critique myself, I was always like, God, do I really sound like that? Like, is that really me? And then, by the end of the season, I just come to expect, hearing my own voice, and it got normal. But then when Woodbine started this year and I was, doing my handicapping for the Journal, I was watching replays and I clicked on one of the replays from Woodbine where I was the guest announcer last year. Like I called 2 races in December, and so I click on a Woodbine race expecting to hear Robert's voice, and I hear me. I'm like, what? It did not compute that I was hearing my own voice for a second there.
Now, after hearing your voice, now do you go back and say, man, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that? And do you actually kind of like have your lines and puns and all that stuff ready and kind of geared up to go?
Sometimes, like if there's some stupid joke that I'm really hoping to use, I'll have it in my mind. But for the most part, I'm not scripted. Probably my favorite scripted moment at Fort Erie last year, there was a horse called Pepperoni, and I had it in my mind that if he went between horses, I would say Pepperoni slices through. And sure enough, heading for home, he goes between horses, and I said it, pepperoni slices through. And one of my friends texted me before the race was even over. I felt my phone vibrating in my pocket at like the 16th pole while the race was still running, telling me, so I look at my phone after the race, and he's just like, I just like, LOL, 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 right? So like sometimes you get an opportunity to script something, and it pays off. It's a lot of fun when it does work out that way, but I don't do it. I try not to make a habit of it. I don't want to be corny all the time.
Now, is it a lot of fun calling the races down Fort Erie? Because Fort Erie doesn't get all the love like Woodbine do. But is it fun for you down there actually?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like even before I worked at Fort Erie, I was always a fan of Fort Erie racing. I would watch every Monday and Tuesday, and I used to like going down there to race horses. Yeah, like the year before I started going to Fort Erie, I took, we raced, I think we made 4 starts at Fort Erie the year before. So I would go down and run them. My dad would stay home. And, I really like Fort Erie. It's a good community. They're good people. And I'm very grateful that they've given me this opportunity to announce for them. So, and it's a fun track to announce at. It's been a good learning experience announcing, because on one hand, it's kind of easy because a lot of the fields are small, but Fort Erie is difficult because on the turf course, there's trees that block you for a certain section. So you have to be prepared for that. And on the Tuesdays, when we race late, when the sun starts setting, it makes the entire far turn like a blind spot. Like the sunset, you can't really see the colors that well. So you really need to be on the ball. So that's a challenge that was really good learning. It took a long time to get used to, but it really helped me a lot the more I went. So to me, Fort Erie, it's almost a perfect track to learn at, because it's easy, but there's difficult factors to it.
Well, I mean, that's pretty cool. Is there a number for you that stands out that if someone says, hey, I'm down in Prescott Isles, or I'm somewhere like that, hey, Doug, here's this number that looks well. Would you be willing to come over and call the races? Or is that something down the line? That's a future conversation.
I mean, I'm open to all work. Anybody who can pay me, I'm open to. But I'm not too worried about those kind of things right now. I've got enough going on with the Handicappers Journal and the announcing at Fort Erie that I'm happy with what I've got. And if bigger and better things come along, then we'll see that. But I'm happy with what I've got going on right now.
Cool. I noticed you're wearing that Kentucky Derby hat. Does that mean that you're paying a little bit of attention to the Kentucky Derby coming up over the weekend?
I bought the hat because I spent 10 days in Kentucky before I came home, like on my way home from Florida. So while I was there, I drove out and I went to the Kentucky Derby Museum at Churchill Downs. So I had to buy the hat. I don't know a lot about the Derby horses, but my pick so far is Tapit Trice, because I saw him at Keeneland winning the Bluegrass. So I got to root for him.
Well, I'm going to just randomly select a horse when I do look at the horses again, and just kind of cheer for it, because, after last year and seeing Rich Strike pull it off at, what was it, like 1,000 to 1? What was it?
Like 83 to 1, something crazy.
I'm like, you know what? This is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Forget the handicapping.
Yeah, exactly. When there's 20 horses involved and rainy May weather, it's tough to predict.
Now, if a young person is planning on getting into horse racing and probably thinking this is a path that they want to take, what kind of advice would you have for them?
I guess it depends on what aspect of the industry they're looking at. If they're interested in training horses or becoming an exercise rider, something like that, backstretch work, I would say just show up, get a job. There's always jobs available. There's a shortage of labor on the backstretch, and not just in Woodbine, at practically every track across North America right now. Show up and try and get a job, and just keep your head down and learn, because there's people who are willing to teach you. And if you can find, the right barn that can work with you and help you learn, you can, it's a fun life. It's a hard work life, but it's a fun life. And if that's what you're passionate about, just show up. Somebody will hire you. If somebody's looking, more on the, racing official or front side kind of life, it's so tough for me to give good advice, just because, again, so much of my career has just been, it's so much of it has been good luck, right place, right time, that I don't even know how I you know, I don't know how I ended up where I ended up half the time. It just kind of happened. So, just, the one thing I can say is with the internet and with social media, there's a lot of people, especially on Twitter, it seems, with horse racing, there's a very active horse racing Twitter community, and a lot of, prominent people from racetracks are on there. So, you can, at the very least, you can put yourself out there a little bit with social media and might catch some attention. So yeah, I would just say put yourself out there. That's the best thing you can do.
I'll say that's pretty darn good advice. I hope younger people are listening, and maybe they can apply that to their skill or to their goals. I want to ask you one more question before we get out of here. And when you're watching racing, do you like to see the really good horses just power to the front and win, or do you like to see a really good race? A really good race.
Closers are always more fun to watch, right? Like, watching the fun of Zenyatta was part that she win the 20 in a row or 19 out of 20, whatever it was. But the real fun was watching her come from dead last. And then, there's always that suspense at the quarter pole. Oh, is she going to make it this time? I like seeing horses come from behind and kind of give you that, that bit of tension. Horses that go to the front and just draw off and win easy. It's impressive, but it's not as an interesting a spectacle. You know what I mean?
I hear you on that, because I definitely like to see horses come from behind, which is sometimes doesn't work out very well because you're cheering for that horse, and then there's traffic, and then sometimes there's a little stuff that happens, and you see the horse is trying to get through but can't get through.
Yeah, exactly. Closers are so dependent on what other people are doing. You need so many things to line up in your favor, whereas speed horses, you got to go to the lead and just try and keep going. It's a lot less complicated, but it is more exciting to see that come from behind style.
Well, Doug, I want to say thank you for being here on this platform with us. It's your first time. Hopefully you can come back again. I really enjoyed this, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. And we'll definitely be on again if you want to have me.
And can you do me a favor? Can you just stay backstage once we end this live? And I just want to ask you something off the air and before you go, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
So once again, this is Doug McPherson, man, voice of Fort Erie. He's a brilliant guy working within the horse racing industry. I've listened to him. I watch his picks, and I'm always curious to see how the picks are going, Doug. And once again, you're very talented. I want to say thank you for being here, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, Derek.
Okay, all right. Well, that's it tonight, guys. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. All right, take care.